Hello everybody, and thanks for tuning in. This is the X73, and yes, it's broken a little bit. But let's not get into that just now. Let's go ahead and cover it. This one is a 7mm motor-powered 73mm diameter. I think it's 105 total from the outer frame to outer frame. It comes with an FPV all-in-one cam. This was one we haven't seen before. It looks to be a fairly new design. Comes with a u.fl connector and a linear antenna. It does come with a FrSky receiver we see right here, and that is the boot button. And it's got an AZE32 based flight controller, and that is the not the boot button, but to flash the firmware you have to press that button when you connect it in order to get into the mode to flash it. It seems to be the market that they're trying to get into is probably similar to what we've seen in the past with the famed Tiny Whoop, and Eachine has already made their own version of that with the E101. They did not obviously include a camera in this, but that's just what everybody, when they saw the E101 or 010, we all immediately thought, hey, let's put an FPV cam on that and see if it does what we've seen the Whoop do. And here's a little size comparison between the two. Let me get the cameras both in front. And then a profile shot. So you can see the size difference is not dramatic, but it is there. Normally what I'd do is we'd start with line of sight so we could show the punch that we get with something that weighs this amount. But I'm not going to do that this time. I'll roll a little bit of FPV footage. But overall, my experience with this wasn't very good. The recommended battery is a 350 milliamp battery, and it doesn't come with one. It doesn't come with really anything other than this, which this is your cable to plug into this port so that you can change your flight controller settings. It does come in a nice box. I'll show you that real quick. So it's a nice sturdy box. You won't get it in a baggie, and they do use some nice foam to keep it all packaged in there. But there's nothing else. There's no spare props. There's no battery that comes with it. There's just this cable. This is all you get in the box. This is it. So I have a number of different batteries, and these are just 3 of the different sizes that I found that will fit and stay in the cage compartment down here. The 500 milliamp does just squeak in there, and you could probably get one that was a little bit thicker in there as well. This is a 380, and it does fit. It bulges at center. This probably stays in the best, is that 380, which is actually 30 mAh more than their recommended battery. And then this little 260, it does slide around in there a little bit, but I found that it really doesn't slide out in flight. It only slides out when you crash, so not great, but it is usable. In flight, I found it difficult to control, even with a strong self-leveling strength on this, and I spent quite a bit of flights tuning it, trying to get it just right. And then I tried Betaflight, which Betaflight helped right away. And to load Betaflight, you just when you plug in your USB cable, you push down on this port as you plug it in, whether you're plugging it in here or you're plugging into your computer. Just have that button pushed down, and then you can flash Betaflight 3.0 on there. And the flight time is detailed at 5 to 6 minutes. But I got nowhere near that. Getting half of that would have been a surprise to me. I got slightly longer, about 23 seconds more with these 500 mAh battery packs, but generally I flew with these battery packs. I've got several of each of these, and you would get about a minute 50 to maybe 2:05 in your flight time. So you're not going to get 5 to 6 minutes with these batteries. And it seems to be that maybe part of the problem is either the motors are very inefficient or these props are very inefficient. I noticed that the prop wash, when you're trying to get up off the ground, you really need to hit the throttle and get up in the air, because the prop wash is actually pretty severe. The camera works fine. That's kind of the highlight of this, is that the camera, mine didn't come focused at all, so you're going to need to spend a little time focusing the lens. I really like that they've got a camera with a u.fl connector on here. That gives us some other options. We don't have to stick with this. We can buy other circular polarized antennas if you wanted to. Of course, that's going to add weight. Notice that the cable length, this could vary from one unit to the next, but mine, you're pretty much going to have some sort of backward tilt completely. And you're not going to get any more. This is as far as it goes. So that seems to be its camera position. With that, it doesn't really make sense that they have this pivot point here if this is our camera position. Why don't they just make it all kind of one piece of injected molding? Because this camera will come loose from this little, let me get a pointer here. There's this little nylon pin down there, a screw down here, and the camera won't come loose necessarily from that. It'll wiggle back, and you can see it kind of comes loose there, and it just kind of pressure fits on, or it'll come out through the top. Several times I noted that I had to readjust to put the camera on, and I know that other people have actually broken this, or they've broken part of it, so they haven't been able to use that. They had to mount with other sources. If this is the camera position and we can't change it with this housing, we either need a different sort of mounting, or it just needs to become all in one, so we don't need this piece here and have to fuss with the camera not being angled right or still attached. I did notice that with the whip antenna, you know, your penetration through walls and obstacles is going to be a lot decreased. If you've seen my other videos, you know that sometimes I'll sit in the basement and I'll fly up to the main level, and then I'll even go upstairs and fly. You can't do that with this. You can get up through the stairs from the basement and kind of in that area, but once you start to circle around to where the stairwell isn't there, flying gets extraordinarily difficult to almost impossible. Going up any further, I know, is just not going to work. So we've kind of covered some of the negatives with this, and I think, and I should also note that this broke on low voltage cutoff. So I wasn't even flying when this broke. It actually it falls out of the air. When the voltage gets low, you don't get voltage sag. It doesn't slowly have to, oftentimes with these single cell quads, they won't have a voltage cutoff. It will actually just start to sag. You'll get the battery sag, and so you'll have to go higher and higher on the throttle stick in order to keep it in the air. This one doesn't do that, and there might be a setting that I didn't investigate, but I noticed that didn't matter if it was clean flight or beta flight, it did the same thing on both. That once it got to low voltage, it was dead. So maybe that has something to do with the failsafe or something of that nature. I also noticed some dropouts. You'll see that in the video. I'll actually include that right here. That it didn't seem to make any sense that every once in a while it would just kind of fall out of the air. And it might do it close to me, and it might do it far away from me. But this also broke when I had the failsafe happen, and it landed on carpet. So I can't put much faith that this outer frame is actually very durable. And I wasn't flying high, obviously, you know, with 8-foot ceilings. I was well below that. So the low voltage cutoff caused damage. That's not good. So that's kind of the negative sides of things. You know, having a printed frame also using as the PCB or PCB, that's always a concern, because if you don't even have to really break an arm. You break a trace and it becomes unreliable. And then next thing you know, you got one motor that doesn't work, or doesn't work very well, or you can't figure out why it works sometimes. And it's generally because of one of these traces in an arm broke. I didn't have any problems with that. You know, obviously just this. The good side of things is that they obviously have a very small FrSky receiver that could possibly be used in other microquads if they were to sell this, and maybe they do. I just haven't seen it, or I know that they've dyed this to give it a theme. But so that's a nice small micro receiver that we could use in other quads if they would sell it separately. And this camera unit, I think they should definitely sell this thing. I suspect if we take it out of this housing, that this camera might come in under the 4 grams. That is kind of the lowest weight that we have available. So if you took say a 3.5 gram camera and put it on something with 6mm motors like this, you get another 1.5 grams of thrust back, because this FX 797 or 798Ts, these are the lightest cameras I have found so far. So this camera, especially with that u.fl connection on there, they should definitely try to sell that camera separately, so that anybody who wants to do a DIY build can do it themselves. I think if you're looking at this quad, you're probably going to have a more enjoyable time if you buy an E101, sorry, I keep saying that, an E010, and add an FPV camera. The cost is going to end up being about the same, but your enjoyment with this will be much greater, I think. Or even if you don't want to buy another Eachine product for whatever reason, you can buy a blade inductrix. They're about $50, add the camera for about $40, and you're all set. You oftentimes with these will have to upgrade the motors in order to carry the extra weight of the camera, And I've done some motor tests for 6mm motors, and I'll link that right up here if you care to watch that. So at this point, I think this might be just a first iteration, and they need to make some updates and changes. And I hope that they do, because there is some possibility with this. I do think they probably need to use some different materials. This plastic, I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't feel like this plastic. It feels like if I bend this much, it will snap. And obviously it did. So they might want to change the materials of the guard. I think these props, we might need some different props. There's no way for me to know whether these are really poor or really good. 7mm motors should give us enough thrust to carry something like this. And let's compare the weight while we're talking about all these things. Let me get my other piece here and my scale. Okay, let's go with the 010 first. 20.6 grams, and the X73 with its piece 27.7-ish. Those are dry weights without batteries. This should have quite a bit more thrust, and it actually should have some outdoor abilities. You know, in a really calm day, you should be able to fly this outside. I didn't even bother to try to fly this outside. It was difficult enough just to fly it inside. If you're not looking at this as an indoor flyer, then I would definitely suggest that you get something like the QX80 or the LT105. Obviously, you can see much bigger props. They are heavier, but they fly better outside by far. They fly better in general. I can't recommend the X73 to anyone really at this time. I hope if you have one that you can make it work for you. Maybe some mods on this frame guard might help you out by just kind of firming things up. You might want to, unfortunately it adds weight, but you might want to hot glue around the motor tabs here. That was the weak point here. I think if that stays intact, it probably doesn't snap the other two sides. You might be able to find a motor guard that goes to a different quad that will go on this, but I think that might be kind of difficult because I believe these motors are held in via the tension between the guard and the PCB frame. I'll leave some flight footage here, which isn't very thrilling, but it gives you some ideas of my struggle. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the section down below. If I find that there's an improvement I need to make in order to fix some of these things, I will definitely post a follow-up. If you guys have one of these and you had some similar experiences and you found a way to make it better, please let me know. I kind of like all quads, and unfortunately this is one that I don't think I'll fly again unless I can figure out a way to make it fly better. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone.